Hey everyone, it's Evangeline right here at eTrailer. Today we're taking a look at how the Hollywood Rack's Destination 4x platform rack fits on our 2023 GMC Terrain. This is going to be one of my favorite 4x platform racks because of how compact and lightweight it is. But because of how it fits vehicles differently, there are some pros and cons to using this with this specific car. The very first thing I notice, and the first thing you should think about, is your handlebars. Notice how for our mountain bike, it sits a little too close for comfort to our rear windshield on our Terrain. But that's okay, you do have options. First option, measure your handlebars. I have some 29-inch long handlebars here. If yours are shorter, maybe you have a road bike, then you should be fine. Second option is you can move your bike further away from your vehicle, maybe to the second cradle, and then that should clear that up. And then your third option is some people put some padding between their handlebars and their windshield like a pool noodle. If you really want to maximize your space and you really don't have any other option, you might go with that one. So with that all being said, let's talk about the rest of the rack here on our Terrain. The Destination 4 is one of my favorite bike racks to recommend because it's super lightweight at only 42 pounds. It's really easy to carry. I have no issue with it whatsoever when most bike racks are a little on the trickier side. And it sits very compact, so it's easy to store in your garage or to keep on your vehicle since it doesn't take up as much room in the back. Your main downside though is going to be the weight capacity. This has a maximum capacity of 35 pounds per bike. So if you have your heavier electric bikes, this might not be the one to go with, but for most mountain and road bikes, you'll be perfectly fine with the Destination 4. And here on our Terrain, I also like where it sits on the hitch because it does give us a good amount of ground clearance when driving around. I'm not worried about everything hitting the ground. But other than that, let's talk about how the bikes are loaded onto the rack. You're going to have 3 points of contact. 1 and 2 are going to be your wheel straps. So you secure your bike by the wheel. We've got this rubber strip up top just to prevent scratching and scuffing up your rims. Press this lever and then lift up on the strap in order to disengage the rack. I do recommend pivoting that strap downwards so it doesn't get caught up in your spokes. Once those wheel straps are released, you then go over to the frame mount. The frame mount is unique because this can move up, down, left, right, and even rotate to get the best fit on your frame. Here we have ours mounted right underneath the bottle cage. So we want to release that. I like to put an elbow around the bike to support it. So that way my hands are free to pull this strap up and out of the way. Now, supporting the bike is very important because once that's released, you do not want this falling against towards your windshield. We already established that it could get pretty close to your vehicle. What we're going to do is we're going to pivot this down, and that way we can move around our mast here to give us some extra clearance away from our car. And from here, we can then lift the bike up and unload it. I'm not as comfortable with how close those pedals and the handlebars get to the vehicle, but there is plenty of clearance there. You just have to be very intentional about how you have your first bike loaded up. If you needed access into your hatch, maybe to grab helmets or groceries, unfortunately, this rack does not tilt away. So you do have to take your bikes off and then you can access your hatch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna push this stand down. Do that by loosening this knob over here, rotating this stand, and then pivoting our mast down. Once that pivots down, you can then use either a cradle strap or the frame mount strap to secure it in a down position. But with all that out of the way, we can now open up our hatch and get into our cargo space. I would have wished that we could get easier access to it without having to completely unload the bikes, just because there's those 3 different touch points, could take a lot of time. But with this being a more affordable bike rack, lightweight and compact, that is going to be the compromise that you're going to have to make. I keep talking about how compact it is, so let's actually take some measurements. If you measure from your bumper to the end of the rack, this sits at 37.5 inches. If you have a small garage or need to park into a tight spot, that's going to be a good measurement there. For comparison with other racks, most 2-bike platform racks sit at like 31, 32 inches away on your terrain. So you can see how big this is compared to those other racks. Next is ground clearance. So end of the rack to the ground, I'm at around 16 inches. Center of the rack to the ground, I'm at 20 and a half. There is this slight rise from the hitch up to the rack and then on the rack itself. That way, if you go up steep inclines like driveways or hills or go over speed bumps, the back of your bike rack and your bikes are not hitting the ground. Since the hitch on the terrain is so close to the ground, so low at like 8.5 inches off, you need every inch of rise you can get. Fortunately, this is pretty good. Speaking of hitches, this has a 2-inch shank, fits into your 2-inch hitch receiver. You have a bolt and a lock. If you don't already have a hitch on your terrain, you can find one custom fit for your vehicle right here at etrailer.com. Now, close to that hitch, you're going to have this other bolt and this clip. We're going to remove that clip and then we're going to loosen that bolt using the knob on the other side. Once that's loose, we're going to let that drop. We loosen that so that we can lift our rack up into the portable position. Now, I want you to keep an eye on where you took that bolt out because you want to make sure you're not pushing the rack all the way into your terrain. It comes close, but there is clearance there. Once those openings line back up, you can put the bolt back in and tighten it down. While that looks like it comes close, we're pretty clear. Plenty of clearance here between our bike rack and our vehicle. Although if you do have any straps, I do recommend tightening them down just in case they come up against the car. Now let's take some measurements again. With it folded up like this, remember how far it sit when it was in the down position? Well now, from the bumper to the end of the rack, it's only 11.5 inches, so less than a foot. Big difference compared to when it was folded down. You'll want it in this position when you're just driving around town, not planning on taking your bikes out just yet, but you also don't want to take your bike rack off. Also, if you have a small garage, now this is going to be how you load it onto your car, and usually you'll have plenty of clearance for that if you don't have clearance for it in a down position. This is what your rack's going to look like from the back, and some things you always have to think about when carrying a bike rack is, are things still visible? Here, yes, your rear window is visible. You can see your taillights. Technically, your license plate and your backup camera are covered, but if you notice, the backup camera sits right there in that opening. So that's going to be good news because you'll still be able to kind of see through the bike rack or if there's any people or cars behind you through your rear view camera. So you can see why this is one of my favorite bike racks to recommend for people that have 2 to 4 bikes that they're planning on carrying around. It's lightweight, it's compact, and honestly, it's pretty affordable compared to some other 4-bike platform racks. The main downside to this one really is going to be that weight capacity of 35 pounds plus the inability to tilt away. So if you're looking for alternatives, I actually recommend taking a look at the Benton Shifts and Grins 4-bike platform rack. That is a 2+2 rack, pretty easy to add on, has a higher weight capacity at 55 pounds, and it tilts away pretty easily. The downside to that rack is it's going to be a lot heavier and sits a lot taller compared to this one. But for something that's going to be very affordable, very practical, and very lightweight, this was a look at the Hollywood Rack's destination 4-bike platform rack, and you saw it on the 2023 GMC Terrain.